Welcome to the Itty Bitty Podcast. I'm your host, Perry Phillips, and because I've killed so many brain cells, I feel like I'm getting dumber as I'm getting older. So the podcast is a great way to learn more about the things that I love. So each week we take a look at topics from the world of pop culture, including music, shout out to hip hop, movies, sports, comic books, video games, psychedelics, cannabis, and more. And the format might not always remain the same from week to week. I'm all over the place, what can I say? And I love the idea of a podcast that changes and grows with our listeners. So before we get too far, if you're listening so far, head over to ittybittypodcast.com to subscribe to the show on the platform of your choice, and make sure to say hi to us on social media. It's pretty much at Itty Bitty Podcast for everything. But without further ado, man, the Itty Bitty Podcast is anything but itty bitty. So let's get it going. What's going on, Itty Bitty Podcast? It's 34th episode, and we just did our new intro again. So I think it's like our third week doing that. This week on the show, we're talking with Steve Casino, who is a toy inventor, toy collector, artist, kind of all over the place. It was a really interesting conversation. His Instagram page is crazy. If you haven't seen his artwork, go check it out. We love pop culture on this show, so if you're a huge fan of pop culture, do yourself a favor, check it out before you listen to this episode. It takes 2 seconds, so you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about, and go check it out. Yeah, Steve Casino on Instagram. We talked about old video games, we talked about pop culture, we talked about, nostalgia, beating the horse to death. So we kind of got into a bunch of different topics on this week's episode. I thought it was a very informative, a lot of interesting stuff, and I think you're going to enjoy it. But remember, this is not a podcast about crazy, unique pop culture artwork. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's anything but, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. The Itty Bitty Podcast.
All right, Steve Casino, welcome to the Itty Bitty Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with me today. I was drawn to your Instagram page because you have a lot of unique artwork, and we like to celebrate pop culture on this podcast. And we usually like to look at people who kind of do stuff that isn't really, mainstream, or you don't see it everywhere. So at first, when I saw one of the first videos I pulled up on your Instagram page was you kind of knocking out a little piece of an old school NES cartridge, and my heart kind of dropped at first. And then once I saw the finished product, I was amazed. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and kind of if you're listening to this podcast, stop and go check out Steve Casino's Instagram page and check out his artwork so you know what I'm talking about. It's really awesome. So Steve, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in pop culture, and why don't you start there?
Okay, so I'm a toy inventor by trade. So I've always been into toys and collectibles and things like that. I also collect old toys. So I have a pretty broad knowledge of the last 50 years of pop culture. And since I was a kid, I always liked doing caricatures. And I remember like my earliest memory of like doing art was like drawing my mother when I was in kindergarten, and I did like a 3-panel comic strip of her being hung. Kind of morbid.
How old were you when you did that?
5.
5. Oh, geez.
I was really proud of myself because she had worry lines between her eyebrows, and
you were proud of the detail.
Yeah. Yes.
So always into art young.
What? Pardon me?
You were into art young then. You got into it very young, yeah. So what kind of came first? Was it your love of pop culture or your love of art? Were you like, a kid that was into a lot of pop culture stuff and that kind of drew you to art, or were you into art first and then you kind of got into, toys and all that stuff?
No, probably pop culture.
Pop
Um,
culture.
like Peanuts, the comic strip. I really liked comic strips as a kid.
Yeah.
That was probably, I was way into cartoons like Hanna-Barbera and things like that. Like even, most kids didn't know like who made their cartoons, but I knew like, who the producers were and things like that. I was kind of psychotic about it.
I was kind of weird
And
like that too. So you like the
and
Sunday
so,
funnies and stuff?
yes.
Yeah.
And then I was really into toys. Like I would get the catalogs like, Toys R Us or Penny's or Sears and just study them. I mean, this is before YouTube where you could watch every commercial ever made. And I would just I knew every toy because I knew what it did. I read the descriptions. So that really got me prepped for a career in toys, even though I didn't know I was doing it at the time.
So what type of toys were you into when you were first getting started?
I really like Mego, like those early action figures.
The Migos, yeah.
Yeah, I
got
like those. And probably before that, like Evel Knievel was really early when I was young.
Evel Knievel.
And he was like, he was like a superhero, but he was a real person.
Right. Yeah, they did what was the guy's name? The new Toy Story movie. I just watched it the other day. That's what's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
They had that guy who's supposed to be like the evil Duke Kaboom or something, I think was his name.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it was hilarious.
Immediately brought me back to my childhood and Evel Knievel and him just doing all those crazy stunts and stuff that you just don't really see that stuff anymore. It's just hard to kind of top that stuff. So
right. And it was the most amazing toy ever made because it had a gyro in it. You crank it, and the harder you crank it, the faster it goes. So you got a direct payoff.
Right. Like the hard work instantly pays off with how fast you can get your toy to smash into the wall. Yeah,
my right arm was huge, and I hadn't even discovered masturbation yet.
No. So tell me a little bit more. So you're a toy inventor as well, and so what do you the work that you have on your Instagram page? What would you consider that artwork, or would you consider that what do you consider that?
That's artwork.
That's artwork,
and that's kind of an offshoot. It's like I develop all these skills creating toys, and then I go backwards and I do it for art,
right.
and then I take it forward and I use it for toys again. So it just kind of feeds off. One feeds off the other.
Now, what's the process like when you're inventing a toy? Like, how does that get started?
Well, I work at a think tank, and we're all kind of like-minded people. It's like some people are experts at building prototypes, and I'm good at coming up with the initial concept, and we sit around and brainstorm, and we do a lot of stuff for Hasbro and Mattel and Spin Master and big toy companies. It's really, really hard, but we've been doing it so long that we've gotten pretty good at it. So it's basically we come up with the idea, we build a prototype, we show it to them, and it's not that simple, but they decide if they're going to actually make it or license it, or we do it specifically for someone's business, like Barbie. We'll come up with like a new amazing Barbie mechanism.
Yeah, I've talked about on this podcast before with certain guests. It's kind of crazy how many toys you didn't realize were advertisements and vice versa. When you go back to like the old He-Man toys or like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's like a lot of those were just a means to sell other products.
Yeah, just a long commercial.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, it's a good goddamn commercial. I mean, I had tons of those toys back in the day. So it's one of those things that I'm a big toy geek. I love toys. I like to geek out on toys. And so I like to learn a lot about, the history of toys and how they were made. And so what was like one of the first toys that one of the first ideas you kind of came up with, and how did you come up with it?
One of the biggest, probably early in my career, was this thing called Diva Stars. And it was, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bratz, the Bratz dolls.
Yeah, I've seen those.
So Diva Stars was like the inspiration for Bratz.
Okay.
And it was an animatronic doll. And it was pretty cool because you had these 4 dolls and they would talk to each other, and they would look at they'd turn their heads and look at each other and talk. Mattel put it out, and that it was like a big hit, but everyone they forgot about it after Bratz. But it was kind of like Furby as a doll.
Oh, okay. So like,
and
so
it
terrifying.
came out cool. And and the initial concept was you had these 4 dolls, and like they'd be talking, you'd take one away, and the other ones would talk about the one that wasn't there.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah, like, did you see her hair?
Oh my God.
It's terrible. You know? like that was what Mattel bought. That was the concept.
That's
They
funny.
really bought into it, and then they made it nice and took that out of it. But
what was a toy back in the day that you like? What was a toy that you wanted but you never got to add it to your collection? Like
the original Stretch Armstrong.
Original Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah.
I think
I did get one later that I paid like $1,200 for, but when I was a kid, I didn't get it.
I had an original Stretch Armstrong when I was a kid.
You had one?
I had one, yeah, and I can't remember what happened, but I punctured it or something, and it lost all that whatever that stuff was inside that made him stretchy, and it was just
it's corn syrup.
Corn syrup? Is that what's inside of it?
Yeah.
What makes is it just corn syrup?
Yeah, just corn syrup. It had a little red dye in it or something. It kind of looked like blood when it leaked out of him.
I haven't thought about Stretch Armstrong in forever. What was his deal? Was he a I can't remember. What was his deal? Was he like an advertisement for something? Did he have his own series or something? Or was he just a toy line?
It was from Kenner. It was an invention by someone, and I remember I was pretty young when I saw that first commercial. My head exploded. I'm like, how is this thing stretching? You know, and then I saw it at the store, and it's like, that thing's kind of huge, and it's like it doesn't have any definition. Like his fists were like kind of lumps,
mm-hmm.
You know, so it wasn't as appealing as in the commercial. But my brother ended up getting Stretch Monster.
Stretch Monster. I remember that. I remember they had the first Stretch Armstrong, and then they started. I don't even remember how many they came up with after that. But I just remember. I only really remember the original one. I don't remember any of the other bad guys or anything. I remember Street Sharks. That was one big one that I had all of. And then there was what was that movie that came out? They had really cool toys, but the movie was terrible. It was like Warriors of Virtue or something like that. But the toys were really cool, like these kangaroos.
I actually worked on that.
Did you?
I worked on it. I flew to the set of China to work on that movie to develop toys.
Did you really?
It was the first. Yeah, it was the first mainland production of in China of a movie from America. In like years.
Those toys were so cool. Like I was so into those toys. I think I liked the toys more than I even liked the movie. But yeah, those toys were awesome. It was just, you didn't see like.
Yeah, I found the movie unwatchable.
Yeah. I watched it when I was a kid. If I went back and watched it now, it would probably be awful. But I just remember.
Yeah, I could tell you crazy stories about that movie because like the people who made it, the producers, they're just the Law brothers. They're these wealthy doctors, and they decided to invest in a film. They wanted to make their own turtles.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and it was highly uncreative. But the people working on it were creative. It was just there's way too many cooks.
Right.
Yeah, but it was cool. That was my first. Like I never traveled outside of the country, and it was like a Thursday, and they said, "Hey, on Monday you're going to China."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how does it work when you're working on a toy for a movie? Is it like they have all these guidelines and it has to be like, how do they get it to, I know that now they have computer imaging and all that stuff to make it kind of accurate and detailed, but back then I'm sure you had to get a pretty accurate model of what the toy looked like for them to, put it out on the market. How did you guys manage that?
You had to use actual
computer? Sculptors?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think the sculptor on that was this guy, Rudy Vapp, who he actually worked on the original Star Wars toys, and then he worked on Spawn, like the first Spawn line. But,
Spawn toys are cool too.
Yeah, what happened was the company I worked for kind of went bust in the middle of that, so the toys ended up being made by. We did all the development, but the toys ended up being made by like some company that the producers of the film just kind of formed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I know that you've got some artwork that you kind of switching up the set. We go all over. I'm kind of a stoner, so I apologize.
Yeah, oh no, that's fine. I'm kind of tired.
No, I hear you. I got to bed late last night, and my wife gets home in the morning, and I couldn't fall asleep after she got home. But I was gonna ask you about I was really digging the fact that you use peanuts in your artwork. So can you tell me a little bit more about how that got started and how you got into using peanuts as like art?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That was my first like art thing, foray into art. That's probably like 7 years ago,
7
maybe
years ago.
6 years ago. And it was just, I started drawing caricatures onto peanuts because they looked like people,
Mhm.
the head and the torso.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, this is really cool because I'm really into music and I love the Ramones. I love punk bands and Sex Pistols, just old, the Clash, whoever. And I just started making all my favorite rock stars out of peanuts. And this is like pre-Instagram, Facebook was kind of just starting, and you couldn't actually have like an art page, so I would just put it on my personal page. I just put these peanuts up there, and people like really responded well. And I just kept doing more and more, and then it just got more attention, and then someone shared it, and it went like very viral, like crazy all over the world. I was getting calls from Europe and interviews, and I was on Good Morning America.
Oh,
It was
nice.
just crazy. Yeah, it's just like totally unexpected. It's like my life changed like in a week.
Just because of
And so
peanuts,
that,
huh?
yeah, and that gave me a lot of confidence to just keep doing more. And so if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't be where I am now.
I mean, I feel like there's
And
got to be a good deal of like confidence building to put your effort and time into something and then to put it out there for everybody to see. I mean,
right.
it's gotta be, I mean, you gotta have to build up that confidence. Um, how do you kind of deal with that when you're when you are going to put a piece of artwork out? Is it like you just automatic now, you don't even think about it? Or is it like, oh, maybe I won't put this one up? Or do you still get that kind
Right.
of
Yeah. I do
self-confidence?
that. Well, the confidence is built now because it just people are paying me for it. So it's like if they're paying me for
Right.
it, it must be good enough that
Money talks, right?
for that. Yeah, exactly. They're not going to pay me if it sucks. So I most of the stuff I post now are commissions because I don't have time to just sit around and make up the next peanut. but but occasionally, like I'm doing collaborations with other artists, and I try to keep doing like personal projects, but mostly it's just things I'm getting paid for, and which is fine because sometimes it leads me down a path that I wouldn't have gone down. Like, I'm trying to think, like just recently some woman hired me to make a crayfish out of peanuts,
Oh, nice.
and it's just like, yeah, and I was
Just
like,
random stuff like that, yeah.
but it sounds random. It's because I'm used to painting faces, and I'm like, how do I do that? So it took me out of my comfort zone, and it came out really, really good. And it's actually one of the most popular things I posted in months.
And then that
I mean,
probably opens you up to a whole nother section
right,
of people that wouldn't necessarily be interested in, like, say, your pop culture stuff. They might
right,
not.
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like some weird thing that would be in a natural history museum, and it's like I didn't know when I started what it would look like when I finished, but it looked pretty cool.
So now, do you ever worry that you're going to run out of old NES cartridges or like 64 cartridges? Where do those come from when you're getting those?
So back in the late 90s, I would just go to yard sales and buy tons of them because I
Oh,
love
right.
it. I mean, like first and foremost, I love NES and Nintendo. And so I just had piles of them. And people actually send them to me now for free also. So like somebody just sent me 2 vintage Game Boys and a Sega. So it's just like I'm not going to run out anytime soon. I have
No.
tons.
I have a gold Zelda, like one of the gold Zelda cartridges that I don't think it works. I got it for like $2 at a garage sale. I'm like, it's $2. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I could never get it to work, but it looks cool.
Oh, so those actually have a battery in them. So the battery just needs to be replaced.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a watch battery inside.
I did not know that. So I
Well, I
can
didn't know that until I cut one open. I found out.
that there's batteries inside the actual cartridges.
Yeah, because it helps you save whatever mode you're in. Or
I didn't realize that. We're always learning stuff on this show. So what's like the weirdest thing that you've been inspired by, or like what's the weirdest thing that you or think that you've created, like that somebody would kind of look at that and go, that's out there?
Probably some of those wooden toys that I make.
Wooden toys.
Like I had a rolling eyeball that like basically it's just a giant eyeball that you put it on this base and you pulled it and it rolled, and it did, the whole bloodshot eye spun 360. And it's just like I really like old toys, and I love toys that do things.
Right.
So I make these wooden pool toys that are animated, and I've made like pretty strange ones. Like I made one for The Office with Michael Scott and Dwight in a car from a certain episode where they drove the car into the lake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very specific and things like that. I'm just always what I made this Jackson Pollock toy, and it's called the Pocket Pollock, and it's like highly unnecessary because he just dripped paint on a canvas, but
Right.
This is an actual toy that drips the paint for you.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So it looks like a tall wooden figure of Jackson Pollock, and you grab one arm and you dip the paint, and then you spin his other arm, and he just like flings paint at a canvas.
That's interesting. So anybody can make their own little Jackson Pollock with it.
Yeah, well, it's a joke because you don't need it. You don't need the toy to actually do that. Yeah, so just like a commercialism joke.
So I spend a little bit of time on social media and stuff, and I kind of see this a lot, and I'm sure you probably get it a lot as an artist, but people like wanting free shit. Like,
yeah.
I can never understand why, and I do a free podcast, but it's just like, I just don't understand why people would expect like you to take your time to make something and then like not get anything back for it. I just that blows my mind, and I see it a lot, and people don't understand. I guess what like I just don't get it. Well, I guess what's your take on that? You probably experience it all the time.
Well, I get it a lot, and people just say, "Hey, why don't you do like?" They'll see me do a cartridge, and they'll say they'll want me to do their favorite game, but they don't want me to pay me. They just think that I should go, "Oh yeah, I'll make your favorite game just because you want it."
Right.
But
because it's their favorite.
There are sometimes like little kids will write me and ask for free stuff, and I actually send it to them. Because I kind of like do a little research and find out that they're actually a little kid and not some adult pretending to be one. So I've sent some free artwork to kids around the world.
That's cool. Because I mean, I feel like that's if you're giving free stuff to kids, it might, one, inspire them to be a better person, and two, that might be you might inspire the next big artist because you gave them a free piece of artwork. And
right, it would blow my mind if when I was a little kid, some artist sent me artwork. So
right,
hopefully I'm for them.
You hear your name mentioned someday on TV by some artist, and they're like, "Yeah, Steve gave me this piece of artwork when I was a kid," and
yeah, that would be great. No, there's some artists on there. I'm trying to look him up real quick. He's on Instagram, and he does the funniest thing where people will ask him for free artwork, and he does like stick figures of them. And he's an amazing artist, but when people ask for free stuff, he just does like horrible drawings of it, and then he posts it. And that's actually the most popular thing he's ever done online are those funny
stick
drawings.
Figures.
Like aside from his actual artwork.
Right. It's kind of like a nice little way to not stick it to people who want free shit, but
yeah, it's hilarious. He's just like pissing on them.
Right. What are some of the challenges that you've found as far as being an artist? Like aside from people asking for free shit, like what are some of the issues or troubles you have on a daily basis?
I don't know. It's weird because it's worked out pretty well for me, but I've had people just like assholes who hire me, and they they'll want something and I'll do it, and they'll just say, well, that doesn't look like me, or that doesn't look like that. And it's like I don't really get complaints because my likenesses are pretty good, and it's like I'm going by photographs that they sent me or something. So I've had people like mess around with me, And I thought about retaliating, like doing a video of me burning their artwork. But I just thought that was kind of vindictive and petty.
Eh.
So I have a small pile of artwork in the corner of my studio where people didn't pay me for it.
Oh, really?
And I don't know what to do with it. Very small, like 3 pieces out of like hundreds. But...
I mean, it's not something that you can. Is it something that was personalized?
Yes, it was like some dude. He's like a Coca-Cola collector, and he had me sculpt him inside a Coke bottle, and then I got half up front, but I never gave him the rest, and I never gave him his piece because he's being a dick.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, if you're not going to pay somebody for their work, I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, sometimes it's hard medicine to swallow if you're not the most attractive person in the world, and I do an artwork of you.
Yeah.
So,
is that how a lot of people find out that they're ugly? They're like, do a character.
I mean, there's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason I've never made artwork of myself.
Shoot. Yeah,
if you're paying an artist to draw you,
I can just picture that moment when somebody.
You got to understand how he sees you.
Right. I mean, you got to have a little bit of an ego to want somebody to pay. Like, I could never have somebody paint a picture of me and then commission a painting of myself and then put it up in like my living room. I just feel like that would be weird.
I would never do it in a million years.
Yeah, I would do it if it was like weird, like if it was me with like doing the Buffalo Bill tuck, just like
something... George Costanza.
Yeah.
Laying there shirtless.
Yeah. Was he on a bearskin rug on that one? I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something like that, something tasteful. But so where I'm just staring at my guests the entire time they're hanging out in my living room,
enjoying fuel.
I know we keep going all over the place, but I want to talk more about collecting toys. So, are you currently collecting toys, and like what are some of the toys that you are collecting now and in the past?
I do I still do it. I do like mini collections. I used to, at one point, I had this huge collection of like robots from the 50s and 60s, and I just got kind of bored with that. And then at one point I was trying to collect every toy, like Stretch Armstrong that I never got as a kid. And it's like, now I have money, so I can buy whatever I want.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that for a while. I got bored with that. And now it's just like one of my favorite collections I have is slime, and it's slime from Mattel. Slime came out in like 1976, and it was like a new invention, and it came in a garbage can. And they're really to find one sealed and with the slime still in it, they're super rare. They're like $500 a pop. And I've been collecting slime, slime with worm. Mattel had a good run where they had slime with eyeballs, slime with worms. And this is all in the 70s. And so I have all of those. And now I'm looking for international ones, because like in Spain, it was called Blondie Blub. And Mattel made it called Blondie Blub over there. So I'm trying to find Blondie Blub. So it's very specific.
I'd be afraid to open that first, the original slime. It's probably like all radioactive. God knows what they put into it. They're just like, fuck it, it's for kids. Let's throw whatever in it. They'll be fine.
Yeah, it's phlegm, actual phlegm.
The CEO of the company just blew snot rockets into
they're using sick children in factories to make the slime.
Well, now we know where coronavirus came from.
Exactly. I was leading to that.
So do you? I'm both obsessed and annoyed by things like Funko Pops, because while it's awesome because you can get a Funko of any, like your favorite character of anything. So you can get all types of different characters and collections, but it's almost like there's too much. Like it's oversaturation, and you just kind of see them everywhere. And then I feel like it's going to be like that for a couple years, and then they're just going to be on the clearance rack everywhere. How do you feel about like trends and stuff in toys, like Funko and all that?
It's funny because I was talking about this subject with my friend yesterday, who's also a collector, and it just seems like nobody will let anything rest. Like How many times does 90210 have to come out again as a
Right.
show? You know, it's like
Right.
people, it's like it was good when it came out, and there's always, someone lining up to make money from something, that someone's nostalgia, and there's a whole, before the whole nostalgia craze started, there was this whole period of time where nobody gave a shit about the Brady Bunch or thing, Bob Ross or whatever, and now it's just like there's nothing, no stone that hasn't been overturned
Right.
with some obscure Punky Brewster, crap that someone's trying to make a buck out of. So it's like hopefully someday it'll rest, but I don't see an end to it.
I know. I love the Incredible Hulk, and so I think I've got like 6 different Funko Pop Hulks, and
Hmm.
that's just like that barely scratches the surface of what they have for the Incredible Hulk, and like any character that's popular like that. It's just they have
Yeah.
so it's just
Well, the good thing about the Hulk though, he's still relevant. They're still making really good content with him.
right.
He's not some crap old nostalgia thing
Yeah.
that nobody cares about.
How do you feel about the new Ghostbusters, the one that's going to be coming out? I don't know if it's this year or next year, with the kid from Stranger Things, and I think it's got some of the original characters from the movie, but
Yeah.
I don't know much
I
about
don't
it.
know. I don't know. I mean, we actually developed all the toys for the last one with the women,
Mm-hmm. I didn't see
and
that
that
one.
it was a huge bust.
Yeah. Really? You don't say.
But we put that toy line together in about a month for Mattel, and it was it was a pretty good toy line. The toys actually sold pretty well, but nobody
Yeah.
cared about the film. But
Yeah.
as far as the new one, it's like hopefully it's good. I mean, basically, if it's a good story,
Right.
compelling, then I'll see it. But it's for cashing in on Ghostbusters just because people want Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't it better be good. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's I think it's the original director's son is directing it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Jason Reitman or
Jason
one of the
Reitman, yeah.
Reitmans. Is
Yeah.
that
Um,
it?
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't look stuff up on this show. We're very we're very much just like if we'll just guess and then you can look it up for yourself. Um, I'm trying to think of some other stuff that because
It,
that's a
it,
good topic of
yeah,
conversation.
all that stuff is usually like it's all about the Comic-Con trailer, and it's all about
Right.
the enthusiasm of all those people in that hall at Comic-Con, like cheering because the Ecto One is in the thing, and it's like, but now you have to actually make a movie that is good.
I went and saw the Jay and Silent Bob Reboot Roadshow back in December or January. I can't remember when it was in Seattle, and he actually did, I thought that movie did a really good job of kind of poking fun at not only himself but that whole culture of like you said, you can't let anything rest, and bringing back and rebooting everything and bringing back new versions of characters, and so I thought that movie did a really good job, since we're talking about that, of kind of touching on that subject, because it's a lot right now. Everything that you're seeing is stuff from that's been done before. So I feel like if you have a really good unique idea and you can kind of get people behind it, I feel like it's wide open for new stories and new
Right,
IP.
exactly.
And
Or just make up something entirely new. I mean, that's the hard. At one point there was no Ghostbusters; it didn't exist, and then
exactly
you
right.
know, and someone made it up. So make up something new. Don't mind the past, because it's like, oh, there's a certain selling at Walmart because Walmart wants Ghostbusters items.
Yeah. Are you a
It's like the
gamer at
best
all?
stuff is what's that?
Are you a gamer currently? I know. Sorry to
No,
switch.
I am, but I actually had to make a decision at one point if I wanted to be an artist or play games, because it just took up too much
I
time.
know. I have a rule
So
that I only play at night, like for a couple of hours, and then I'm done. I can't, and I don't even play it every day like I used to. I try to. It's if you let that consume you, you can sit there for hours playing games and just get
exactly,
lost in it.
I played a lot of Resident Evil 4, like
Yeah.
staying up for 24 hours at a time playing it.
Well, the reason I was asking is because since we're talking about new IPs and new properties and stuff, game I recently played, which was pretty hyped up, was a Death Stranding. I don't know if you know anything about Death Stranding, but it's a Hideo Kojima game. It was his first big game after leaving, what was it, Kojima? Or what was this? I can't remember who makes Metal Gear Solid, but it was the first big project after that. And so a lot of people were skeptical or weren't sure what to expect. And they did a really good job, like not telling you pretty much anything about the game and kind of building that anticipation and making you learn about the game. And a lot of people have received it really well. And it's a brand new IP, brand new. It's not it's not bringing back any old, any old stories, any old characters. It's all new stuff. And it seems like it's going to, be a hit, and they'll probably make more games like that. So I don't know why a lot of people don't take risks on new projects rather than reboot old projects. It just kind of seems...
Right. I mean, I noticed that from the game industry, there's a lot more creativity. And I mean, I've been to, the NES. Is that what it's called?
Well,
no, not NES. What's the show in Vegas with the video games?
Is it E3?
E3. I've been to E3, and you see like, you see one original thing, and then you see 12 things that look like it, But at the same time, it's like, games like Cuphead. It's like, wow, that taking like 1920s cartoons and making a game out of it. It's a good idea. Really good look. It's fresh. I think, and then you have that, and then there's the Cuphead movie that follows. It just seems like things start in video games, better than they do films these days.
Yeah, and I think if you redo a game too, it's more like, I just played the demo for the new Final Fantasy VII remake, and Final Fantasy VII was one of my favorite games as a kid. And playing the remake, the demo, it's like it's almost an entirely new game, but it's not. It's like it feels very much the same as the old game. You get a lot of the same feeling that you get when you played that old one. But I feel like games are, if you're going to remake anything, games are the way to go, because you get better technology. You're getting, the gameplay mechanics are a lot of times a lot better. So I think games are one area where I kind of give them a little bit of slack for rebooting and stuff.
No, and definitely. And I think with games, it's like you really get your money's worth. Like, I used to read comic books, and then it got to the point where a comic book's like $5 now or $6, and it's like you get about 15 minutes of pleasure out of it, and then it's done. But a video game, you just play forever, hours and hours, and it's so engrossing, and it's just, things like old media can't compete with it.
Yeah. And a lot of times you have to read too. I mean, for a lot of games, it's like, it's a lot of reading, and you don't really, you're getting a lot of information that you're having to absorb and pay attention to. So I feel like cognitively, it's got to be good for you, as you get older, keeping your functions all together. I feel like it's got to help,
Yeah, I basically learned how to drive by playing Crazy Taxi Driver.
Crazy Taxi was one of my favorite games. They had, was it Offspring was one of the songs that they had on there?
Yeah, exactly.
I just still, like, that song just sticks out in my brain. I can't even remember which song it is, but as soon as you said that, I thought immediately Offspring. Crazy Taxi, wow, that's funny. So creating toys and stuff like that, have you ever created like your own piece of intellectual property that you'd want to put in comic books or branch out and do something else with? Or
okay, so in Web 1.0, I created a toy a fake toy company called Gobbler Toys, Gobler. And it was huge. It was I was like one of the websites of the year in Entertainment Weekly, and I was also on MTV, and it was just this fake toy company with these insane toys. And for a while, probably 5 years, had a good run where I was making toys that actually Funko made one of the toys. And another company made some of the toys. Like I had a toy called Kiki the Fashion Tiki, and it was a parody of Barbie, but it was the ugliest thing you've ever seen. It was a wooden tiki with Barbie hair and a dress. So there's just these weird, insane toys, and I just kind of let it die. I had a partner with it who I actually work with now, designing real toys, and I just let it. I got married. I got a family. Things. I let that go by the wayside, and then from the ashes of that, I created the art career with the Peanuts and all that. So that was my IP that I did, and it did well for a while. But it's like, probably if I had the right thing, I would do it again. But I haven't been looking at it that way.
So it's almost like the garbage pail version of like toys, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I had a toy called Senior Sandwich, and it was a salami scented pool toy.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just hard. Johnny Voodoo.
How do you get it to smell like salami?
It was just that one wasn't actually made.
Oh, you never.
I don't know. I don't even think the web. It's on Facebook still, but I just I haven't contributed to it in years. But I'm just always trying different things, different angles. It's like, I'll probably circle back to something that's more content driven in the future. But no, it's like I'm enjoying what I do, so I don't strive to do anything else at the moment.
So what's the process behind the art that you make now? Because it looks like it's got to be time consuming. Like, say for instance, like, let's take like one of the cartridge pieces that you do, like one of the, like, let's say like the Mario Kart 64 one that you did. How long does a piece like that take, and what's the process behind it?
So what I do is I have an iPad Pro, and I take a photo of the cartridge, and then I just draw on top of the cartridge, and I kind of, I'll do research and find like Donkey Kong in his cart, or baby Diddy Kong, or whoever, I can't even remember, and then I'll draw it, and then it's all tied together. So then I get the cartridge. So I do a lot of drawings and research before I actually cut into the cartridge, and then once I do, it's just pretty much I've laid out the roadmap for exactly what I'm going to do for the piece. Like right now, I'm doing Metroid, and
love Metroid.
and I did a lot of research, and I have like I'm trying to. I have different ways to do it. Like, I use different clays, and I don't know. So basically, I build everything in 3D on the cartridge, and then I paint it like a painting. So even stuff that's 3D, I paint it like a painting, so it looks hyper 3D.
Right.
So it gives like a nice feel, things like coming out of it.
It's kind of,
and it's fun. Like, right, I have I have a list of commissions. Like, I'm like 20 deep for these, because I'm doing Xbox commissions, and I just got an ET commission for Atari this morning.
Oh, nice. So so when you get these pieces, are you like, yes, I get to figure out how to do this? Or are you like, what's the thought process behind that? Like, is it excitement? Is it more like curiosity, or like, how am I going to do this? Or what goes through your head when you get the commission?
Okay, so it's divided into two things. Like, one is money, and the other part is art. So like later in the year, like halfway through this year, I'm going to stop taking commissions, and I have an art show in LA, and I'm going to do like my own artistic type cartridge stuff. But for now, I'm just doing everybody else's for money. And I just recently got divorced, and I have to raise a lot of money for alimony.
Right. Yeah.
So, but ones that I'm going to do, I like to do like stories. So I look at a cartridge, and it's like, so I'm doing a Dr. Mario one, and I'm doing Excite Bike. So, and this is my personal one that I'm doing for the art show. So I have Dr. Mario coming out of his cartridge, and the Excite Bike guys like has come out of his and wrecked, and he's like laying on the ground bleeding. And then Dr. Mario is like administering care to him.
That's awesome.
And that's like a scene. So that's what I'm doing for my own artwork. And ones like that, where there's like, I'd done one where I had Duck Hunt, and I had the dog from Duck Hunt shooting Uncle Scrooge in the DuckTales cartridge. So
I feel like you could do some really wild shit with that, like because there's so many
Yeah, so
different
that
cool cartridges and artwork on there. Like I'm
yeah,
trying to
it
think of
reminds me of like
Paperboy.
old Warner Brothers cartoons where they would have like they would go through a grocery store and they would have like sardines coming out of the can, and the sardines were doing something, and another guy coming out of another can was interacting with them. So I want to do something like that.
Now, you said that you're going to be doing an art show in LA coming up
Yes,
in
in November.
in November.
Hmm.
Where is that at?
Oh, it's a Gallery 1988. It's a pop culture gallery out there
Okay. No, I
on
was
Melrose.
just asking just because I used to live in LA, and so we've got some
Oh,
listeners.
okay.
So we got some listeners in LA. So if anybody's in the LA area in November, go check that out.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're pretty good pop. They're kind of one of the first pop culture galleries, and
oh,
really
nice.
nice people.
I love LA. I just can't live there anymore, but we used to live there for a long time, and
I couldn't live there either.
no, it's great to visit. I love going there to visit, but it's just one of those things. It's like I could not go back and live. I mean, maybe outside of the city of LA, but it's just we were in the valley, which was super crowded all the time. Um, I wanted to. You said something a couple minutes ago that didn't want to forget about, but you had said that you make when you're painting the cartridges or the art on the cartridges, you make it to look like hyper 3D or I can't remember what the phrase you used was. But
Right. Hyper realistic.
yeah, so I was gonna say that it's crazy when you look at it. Like if you look at it straight on, it does. It almost looks like it's flush with the cartridge, and then as soon as you kind of get that angle on it, you can see all the detail, and so it's just really unique the way that you do that. So I just wanted to give you props for that before I forgot.
Oh,
So
thanks. Well, it's because I've had no formal training in it, so I'm
oh,
just kind of making it up as I go along.
oh really?
Yeah,
So where how
I
do
never
you
took painting. I never took sculpture.
any YouTube videos or anything like that, or you just kind of figuring it out?
No,
No.
what happened was I never sculpted, and then I started doing those peanuts, and then I started having to add clay to them because sometimes a peanut wouldn't be like a certain shape. And that's how I learned. I just from doing a little sculpting on there, I learned sculpting, and then it just got more intricate. So then I moved over to different things like the cartridges.
Have you ever
So
had?
what I do is I'll have like a leg. I'll have like a Metroid, the leg of I can't remember what's the guy's name in Metroid on the cover.
I think
or
it's
woman.
Samus.
Samus. So I have the leg coming out of the cartridge, and it's sculpted in 3D. But then I'll actually paint it so it has shading on it, so it's even more 3D. So it's like double 3D. And I found that it just looks better that way for some reason. It doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. Have you ever had somebody ask you to do something that you were just like that you just straight up said no? Like was it just like why?
Like a Hitler peanut?
Oh, really?
No, I'm kidding. No, what's weird is I've actually during the whole Me Too movement, I kind of went down a list, and a lot of people have had me make, like Harvey Weinstein's daughter hired me like 2 years ago or about to make a peanut of him for his birthday. She gave it to him as a gift.
Oh shit, really?
And this is right before it happened.
Right before.
And the whole time I was working on it, I'm like, I didn't know really anything about him, but I'm like, I'm not going to show this to anyone. It's just, it doesn't, there's something about this guy that just seems creepy.
I mean, you want to talk about like a face translating into artwork? That guy, he had a mug, like
yeah,
he had a face that only like a mother could love, and he just I guess he's lucky that he had a lot of money, but apparently now it's luck's run out. But that's kind of crazy, yeah, that you commissioned a peanut piece of him. He's got the perfect body for a peanut, I feel like.
Oh yeah, no, but normally when somebody wants to hire me and I don't want to do it, I put a crazy price on it. So if they come back and say, "Hey, okay, that price is fine," it's like at least I have the money to ease the pain of making it.
What would be something that you wouldn't want to do, and like why?
I mean, there's certain things like wedding cake toppers.
Oh yeah.
I will only make those for like somebody hired me recently to make one, and she's a very nice woman, and she's hired me to make things for her in the past. So I'm doing it because she's nice and I like her.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, it just, there's no interest at all. It just bores me.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, if you're gonna be doing artwork, I feel like it should be stuff that you're interested in and that you're gonna want to do. If you're bored by
Yeah.
it, it's not. I mean, it's gonna come across when you're making it. And this is coming from somebody who has zero artistic ability, so I know what I'm talking about.
No, I know you only have X amount of time in your life. And
Right.
It's like you really want to look back and say, damn, I did that wedding dress well. I really did a good job on the wedding.
Oh man. Now, have you done any, like, I like those, like the Budweiser can that you did. Has anybody ever approached you to do like advertising for their beer or anything like that with this artwork? 'Cause I feel like that would be a huge market for.
Chiba Chews, you know who they are?
I'm a big pot smoker. I love Chiba Chews are one of the only, for whatever reason, when I take edibles, I can sit there and eat 250 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams and it won't do anything for me. You give me one tiny Chiba Chew and I'm wrecked. So I am very familiar with Chiba Chews.
Yeah, so they hired me to make a monster, like a giant Chiba Chew for them. That was kind of fun.
That's awesome. That would be like, yeah, that would be when, for me as an artist, that would be when I knew I made it, is when Chiba Chew asked me to do something.
Yes.
So
It's a lot of nut companies, a lot of like almond milk companies, and have hired me in the past. Like Planters Peanuts hired me to make certain things. It's fun, It's I pretty much never say no to anything because it could lead down to something. And most avenues are dead ends, but occasionally something happens that's great from doing something.
Right. Well,
never know. So.
I mean, you're on this podcast right now, so you said yes to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you probably
exactly.
Probably made a mistake, but
Harvey Weinstein could be listening to this from prison.
Oh, if Harvey Weinstein is listening to this in prison, then I think I've done my job. I think that's my target demographic is sex offenders, disgraced millionaires in prison. So before we start wrapping it up, I always like to give my guests an opportunity to, tell any stories they want to tell, or, kind of tell people where they can find you, or if there's anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't gotten to. I like to give you the opportunity to kind of air your piece. So is there anything that you wanted to say before we finish up here shortly?
Well, you're kind of putting me on the spot because I have many, many stories, but they're not all accessible at the moment.
You don't have to. I always just like to give people the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I'm on Instagram and I post things on there occasionally. Like I was just on some ABC television show, so I have a link to it on there, so you can go and watch that. It's like 4 minutes long. And I'm currently in an art show in Australia, and there's a link on my Instagram page if you want to look at pieces on there. It's a miniature show. I mean, that one other thing I do is I paint on Tic Tacs.
I saw that, and I forgot.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk to you about that too.
Yeah, I don't use real Tic Tacs, but I use the container like a diorama, and I actually hand sculpt little Tic Tacs and I paint on them. And it just for some reason that's my favorite thing to do. All the artwork that I do, I just like making these little tiny things because they're just funny. It's like whenever you take something, and especially like hideous things, and make them tiny, they're just cute. No matter, there's no way around it.
So you like the more? Are you like I'm one of those people, I can't stand tedious. Like if it's something that I have to do meticulous and like be hyper focused on. Are you one of those people that like it seems like you'd have to be, if you like doing those tiny little works of art, you would have to be into details.
Yes, and it's like something that I had no idea I could like paint tiny. like, or see really small. Like my whole life, I had no idea. And then one day I just started doing it. It's like, holy crap, I could paint on a grain of rice if I wanted. And I don't use lenses or anything.
No.
It's just I have super close up vision but my far away vision's horrible.
So how do you, when you're
compensating,
when you're painting that small or doing stuff that small, like how do you even get, like, how do you get everything to do what you want it to do? Like,
I don't know. And the funniest thing is I have the stubbiest, like, fattest fingers, but for some reason I got these like brushes, and they have like Fred Flintstone handles. They're really chunky brushes with a tiny, tiny tip. And I figured out a way that I could hold them, and it's almost like a little machine. It's like a plotting. You know what a plotter is?
Mm-mm.
Those old printers. My hand's like a plotter, and I just hold that tiny tic tac, and I just bam, 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 like paint this little thing on there. And it doesn't take me very long either. Maybe an hour to do one.
Like one little whole tic tac diagram.
Yeah, and it's like, I charge a lot of money for those, and I get, it's basically they're paying for the fact that I can paint that small, not how long it takes me.
I know. I was gonna say, don't tell people how long it takes you. They're gonna try to lowball you now. Like, it only takes you an hour.
Then I just won't do them.
Yeah.
No, but the show in Australia is that I finally publicly am exhibiting these tiny Tic Tac boxes, and so far I've sold 3 out of 6 of them. So there's 3 more for sale in there.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place to kind of wrap it up. Steve, it was awesome talking to you. I always like talking to toy collectors, and if to my listeners, if you're listening to this and you haven't checked out Steve Casino's Instagram page, go check it out. You won't be disappointed. If bonus points, if you do like a little bit of acid, you're probably going to enjoy it a lot more. But it's in all seriousness, it's awesome artwork. I really enjoy people who do unique things. Because like I said, we like to celebrate pop culture on the show, and especially if you're doing something that's you don't see every day. I mean, you could just be out there painting pop culture pictures and doing stuff like that, but I feel like what you're doing is a lot more time consuming, and it's a lot more unique and creative, and I think we need more people like that in this world.
Thank you.
Steve, really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. And
sure.
If you haven't checked out Steve Casino on Instagram, check him out, give him a follow, and so thanks again for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, take care.
See ya. That's our show for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate you. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. It helps me out. Helps me out tremendously. Go through our website when you can. ittybittypodcast.com. Everything goes through there. That's where I have my ads. That way this show doesn't have ads on there. Appreciate everybody for listening to the show. We've got a bunch of cool guests lined up. It's just a matter of getting the interviews recorded. So far we've got a lot of confirmed guests that we're just waiting to set up a time. So I've got a lot of cool stuff coming your way in the near future, I promise. And